There is a version of you 20 years from now sitting in a paid-off house, staring at a savings account with more money in it than you ever imagined, feeling absolutely nothing. Not happy, not free, not satisfied, nothing. And the terrifying part is that you will have done everything right. Every financial advisor you ever listened to will have been technically correct. You saved. You were disciplined. You delayed gratification. You followed the plan. And somewhere along the way, without ever making a single obvious mistake, you traded the life you actually wanted for the spreadsheet version of a life that looked good on paper. This is the wealth paradox. And almost nobody talks about it because the people who figured it out too late are too embarrassed to say it out loud. Here is the first thing you need to understand. The Save Now, Live Later model was not designed for your benefit. It was designed in the 1870s during the Industrial Revolution by factory owners who needed workers to show up on time, suppress their desires, and not quit. The concept of delayed gratification as a virtue was not a psychological discovery. It was a management strategy. Economists at the time called it the abstinence theory of capital, and what it meant in practice was simple. If you can convince people that waiting is noble, you can keep them working for you indefinitely. The framework survived because it was useful to the people with power, not because it was true. Now here is where it gets interesting. In 1978, psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell published a study that should have permanently ended the save and wait model. They studied two groups of people. One group had recently won the lottery. The other group had recently become paralyzed in accidents. Common sense would tell you the lottery winners were far happier. The findings told a completely different story. Within 1 year, both groups reported roughly the same levels of happiness as they had before their life-changing events. The lottery winners had adapted to their new wealth so completely that their daily pleasures, things like talking to a friend, eating a good meal, watching a sunset, gave them less satisfaction than they had before winning. Their baseline had shifted upward and everything ordinary now felt underwhelming. Brickman and Campbell called this hedonic adaptation. The idea that human beings are wired to return to a relatively stable level of happiness regardless of what happens to them. What this means for your savings account is more uncomfortable than most financial content will ever admit. The version of you that finally hits the number, the retirement target, the financial independence goal, is not going to feel the way you think. Because by the time you get there, you will have adapted to wanting more. The goalpost does not stop moving just because you reach it. It moves because you reach it. This is not pessimism. This is neuroscience. And understanding it changes everything about how you should think about money. The second thing you need to understand is what economists call opportunity cost. Every financial decision is not just about what you are gaining. It is about what you are giving up by making that choice. When you put $1,000 into a savings account, the opportunity cost is not just the interest you might have earned elsewhere. It is every experience, skill, relationship, and version of yourself that $1,000 could have created instead. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert spent decades studying effective forecasting. That is the scientific name for your brain's ability to predict how future events will make you feel. What he found was that humans are consistently, systematically wrong about what will make them happy. We overestimate the impact of big future events, like having a lot of money saved, and we dramatically underestimate the impact of small present experiences. We think the future version of us with the full account will be transformed. What actually transforms us is the accumulation of experiences we either chose or declined along the way. Gilbert called this the impact bias, and it has a specific implication for wealth. The experiences you are deferring right now, the trip you are postponing, the skill you are not learning, the risk you are not taking, are not just delayed. Many of them will simply not exist by the time you feel financially ready to pursue them. The window for certain experiences is biological, not financial. You cannot buy back your 30s at 60. You cannot purchase the version of yourself who took the leap at 28. That person either gets built now or never gets built at all. Here is the third thing. And this one is the one that changes behavior if you sit with it long enough. There are two completely different things that people call wealth, and almost everyone is chasing the wrong one. The first kind is net worth. It is a number. It lives in an account. It can be measured and compared and optimized. It is what most financial content talks about exclusively. The second kind is what researcher and author Morgan Housel calls wealth you cannot see. It is the freedom to say no, the ability to wake up and decide how your day goes, the option to walk away from something that is costing you more than money. This second kind of wealth cannot be deposited anywhere. It does not show up in your net worth. But it is the only kind that actually produces what people are looking for when they say they want to be rich. The confusion between these two things is responsible for an enormous amount of human misery, because people spend 40 years accumulating the first kind, believing it will automatically produce the second kind. And it does not. A large bank account does not give you freedom. It gives you the option of freedom. And if you have spent 40 years building habits of deference and delay, of waiting and suppressing, of always preparing but never arriving, you will not suddenly know how to be free just because the number finally says you are. Psychologist Sonia Lubomirsky at the University of California, Riverside spent years studying what actually moves the needle on human well-being. Her research found that life circumstances, including income and wealth above a basic comfort threshold, account for only about 10% of the variation in happiness between people. Intentional activities, things you actively choose to do and engage with, account for roughly 40%. The largest driver of human well-being is not what you have. It is what you do and who you are becoming while you are doing it. This does not mean money does not matter. It does. Security matters. Not having to worry about rent matters. A financial floor beneath you matters enormously. But there is a threshold above which more accumulation produces diminishing and eventually negative returns on the thing you actually want, which is a life that feels worth living. So what does this actually mean in practice? It means the question is not, how much should I save? It is, what am I building with the time that money is supposed to eventually buy? Because if you cannot answer that question right now, with what you currently have, you will not be able to answer it later with more. The capacity for a rich life is a skill. And like every other skill, it atrophies if you do not practice it. It means investing in your own capability is not the irresponsible alternative to saving. For most people in their 20s and 30s, it is the higher returning asset. A skill that increases your earning capacity by 20% compounds differently than a savings account. A relationship that opens a door you did not know existed has a return that does not appear in any spreadsheet. An experience that changes how you see the world produces a version of you that makes better decisions for the rest of your life. These are investments. They simply do not look like the ones you were taught to make. And it means the most dangerous financial plan is the one that asks you to become someone completely different in the future in order to finally start living. Because the future you is built from the choices the present you makes. You do not arrive at freedom. You practice it. You do not become someone who knows how to live fully. You live fully, imperfectly now, and that practice builds the person who can sustain it. The wealth paradox is not that money is bad. It is that money pursued as a destination rather than a tool will cost you the very thing it was supposed to buy. Stop saving your life for later. The account you actually cannot afford to leave empty is the one that fills up when you say yes to the right things while you still can. If this made you think differently about what you're actually building, subscribe. Every week we go deeper into the psychology behind money, time, and the decisions that quietly shape everything. Hit the bell so you never miss it. And leave a comment below with one thing you have been postponing that you are going to do a version of this week. Not someday. This week.